who can the ass?
This one truly breaks my heart if the allegations against him are true. Brett Favre, legendary quarterback from the Green Bay Packers, record breaker, Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer, everything in the career you could possibly want as a football player. And now he's being accused of taking money that was geared towards helping poor people in Mississippi towards building a volleyball gym for his daughter's university. This hurts me a lot, but it also hurts me even more, a lot more, considering that the media's near tone deafness to it, considering in the past that any NFL player, especially a black NFL player, were to got himself into some kind of trouble like this, and evidence has shown that, they would be on the media 24/7. We saw it with Colin Kaepernick, we saw it with Michael Vick, we saw it with Jameis Winston, we saw it everywhere. Unfortunately, we live in a time that ignores certain people for certain situations and blows up people for certain situations. To help me illustrate this, I'm going to read you an article from Deadspin.com. The media needs to treat Brett Favre like it did Michael Vick and Colin Kaepernick, written by Ken J. Phillips. Newsflash. As much as you love to dog them, dogs aren't human. As much as it might infuriate you, asking the police to do their job isn't a fireable offense that should get you blackballed from your industry. But that's not how it works in America. In this country, you get a mainstream media coverage for killing a dog, which was really, really bad, honestly. As a dog person, I hate that. But it's not as bad as storming the United States Capitol in an effort to overthrow a fair election with plans to kill government officials, or kneeling during the national anthem because you're tired of white cops getting away with murder after they play target practice with black bodies. Brett Favre is a trash human being. Jen Strager tried to warn people about him years ago, but being that she's a woman, she was ignored. Go do some research on that situation and learn something. However, what Farve is barely in the news for this time around should be something that should be on CNN, MSNBC's, even Fox News, and especially ESPN. It should be airing around the clock. One of America's most cherished quarterbacks diverted funds intended for welfare recipients, but most of all, money that was taken away from innocent people who desperately needed it. Usually, something like that would lead to huge news push. Now, Farr denies the accusations and no charges have been filed against him at this time. However, you have to remember who Favre stole the money from. Poor black people in Mississippi. Apparently that's not news. You know, like kind of how whenever a white kid is kidnapped, it's everywhere you turn. But when a little black kid goes missing, you have to spend time looking for more information, and that anyone even cared enough to cover it. When Mississippi Today published their story earlier this month about how the state's former governor assisted Favre in using welfare funding to pay for a volleyball stadium at his daughter's school, it was the ultimate gotcha moment and included text messages from that proved that Favre and company were deliberately robbing the poor to give even more to the rich. Here are the text message. Part of the text messages. Was just thinking about that. Here is the way to do it, Favre texted. If you were to pay me, Is there any way the media can find out where it came from and how much? Farve asked. Farve's face should be on every tabloid in New York City, and updates of his case should be scrolling across the bottom of every sports and news network live. Why? Because this is the norm when black athletes do something. That's nowhere as bad as that upsets people. I put that part in quotations because the most of the time the offended aren't mad. They just love to participate in false outrage. For instance, before we knew the full depth of the horrific things that Jameis Winston was entangled with in the past, which include the rape accusations, and fondling of an Uber driver, his crab leg shoplifting story was so major that even CNN covered it. When Vic did what he did, as one of the faces of the NFL, it became a story that was impossible to ignore. Given that it should be an inescapable issue, given that it should have been an inescapable story, and even after he served his time and was trying to mount an NFL comeback, the coverage around his return and the reaction to it was something you couldn't get away from. And when Kaepernick dared to hold American law enforcement accountable for their behavior and racism, it landed him on the cover of Time magazine. But yet, I vividly remember Terrell Owens being villainized because he had the audacity to do sit-ups in his driveway while answering questions from reporters. The media needs to keep that same energy. The fact that it's beyond believable that we have come to a place in which a man with Favre's past can be caught red-handed doing what he did, but isn't receiving the same media attention as some of the other black athletes who did things that don't even come close to being this egregious, and that even if they're committed a crime at all, is an example of just how low the bar is set now. Favre's situation should be covered like it was the funeral of an old white woman that died in a foreign country as a member of a monarchy that had no power or influence in America. And I say that, and I'm reading this article, and I'm saying that not as an insult to Queen Elizabeth II, but it is the truth. But it goes deeper than that. The NFL and Roger Goodell have not said one word or released a statement on this matter, and neither has the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Don't be surprised if anyone that ever dealt with or has been close to Favre rides out this gag order for as long as possible. But in the meantime, the mainstream media's complicity in this crime is also a problem, as they sat by and done nothing to help shed a light of what's going on. This is the second time Brett Favre has been caught with his pants down. That means that there will be one day where it'll become a third time. There's no point in evolving if people keep turning a blind eye to your sins. Maybe if it stole money from a humane society or a police fund, it would be on the front page of the newspaper, because apparently stealing from poor black people in Mississippi is only worth some chatter on Twitter. I have to agree with this because, quite honestly, I used to have the greatest respect for Brett Favre, one of the oldest quarterbacks in the NFL. Super Bowl champion, broke records, and ultimately becoming an NFL Hall of Famer, a Pro Football Hall of Famer, excuse me. Now, all of us have scandal. Well, I'm not going to say scandals. All of us have done things wrong, but this is just the wrongest of the wrong. This guy stole money from a fund geared to helping African Americans who are poor, who are desperate of help. Why is this not on everyone's minds? I had to find this article, this one article, on a Facebook mention. Now, I'm not saying that you need to plaster his face everywhere and do that, but you did even worse to Michael Vick. And Michael Vick did bad things, the dogs. And he deserved every single bit of condemnation that came with it. The protests in front of the stadiums, the NFL getting that black eye. And frankly, it needs more than just a black eye considering its history with Roger Goodell in the helm. The scandals that he went through, that he's gone through thus far, starting with the concussion scandal, all the way to the domestic violence ignoring scandal. And as for Colin Kaepernick, now you got your opinions on Kaepernick. He's a subpar quarterback, whatever. No, he isn't. If you make it to the Super Bowl and once, twice, or in the case of Tom Brady's case, multiple times, you're not subpar. You made it to the championship game of the NFL. People had football players from Pop Warner to middle school to high school, all the way to college, have dreams of making it that far. Colin Kaepernick is one of them. And the only reason he was in the news is because he took a knee during the national anthem to protest a situation in this country that many Americans, especially people like Donald Trump and his supporters like Nick Adams, who posted this photo a few days ago in a world full of Colin Kaepernick's be a Brett Favre. Seriously? I'd rather be someone like Colin Kaepernick who fights against injustice than a man who stole money from African Americans who desperately need it, who are poor and need help. You're enraged, man. See, that's what the real problem with this country is. Now, when it comes to Michael Vick, he did what he did, and he paid the price for it. And frankly, that was wrong. But when Colin Kaepernick, a man who has that kind of platform, uses it to address social injustice in this country, that has already taken too many lives. But you don't say anything about a man stealing money geared to helping people in this country who are destitute. That really shows me that you have no soul. And it shows even more that the media doesn't have their priorities straight. Because they spent years on Kaepernick, years on Michael Vick. They barely right now, Brett Favre to them is barely a footnote. And that is disgraceful. It's unfortunate to have to talk about this man like this. But honestly, if he's guilty of this, if he's not guilty of it, I'll be the first one to apologize to him. But if he was an unwitting person into this and didn't know where the money was coming from, I'll still apologize. But all indications are showing that he knew exactly where the money came from and how to get it. And in that view, if he's found guilty of this, he is nothing more in my eyes than
a Rudy Poo Candy ass.
CTP. Know the truth. God bless. Peace to the left, justice to the right.